Hello friends, welcome to part 2 of the Gravely project here. Okay, so as I said, I was just going to take the all the tins and the gas tank assembly and all that off camera because you've all seen that done before. Okay, so we've gotten to this point here to where the top end of the engine is exposed here. What you really want to do is, I cleaned everything surrounding and part of the cylinder jug here. I cleaned everything up as best as I could here. I used a little wire brush and I have a chemical I sprayed on it, a degreaser, and I brushed it all off, and then I watered it, I rinsed it off with water, and then I blew it dry with the air hose. Okay, so we've gotten to this point here now, and what we have here is 4. They're fine threaded nuts, 3/8 nuts. So you'll be using a 9/16 on these nuts to get the nuts off, and then below that there's lock washers, and there's 4, 1, 2, and in the front there's 3, 4. Okay, so what I did after I cleaned everything up is I brought the engine up to top dead center here, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pull the spark plug out, and then we'll begin by removing the head here. I'm going to replace all these bolts here. They're 5/16 bolts. I'm going to replace them all. Most of these, I didn't count them up yet, are like 1.25 inches long, and the 2 on the ends that hold the heat shield on has a spacer, so they're like 2-inch bolts. Like I said, 5/16, so we'll be using a 1/2-inch socket to get these bolts out. And during assembly, I'm probably, I'll use some anti-seize on these bolts, the brand new bolts, because it's a big help when you have to go remove these bolts again, especially over towards the exhaust side, because this is where it gets really hot, and sometimes these bolts are real hard to get out, or you'll snap them. I know one bolt here, when this was on the 54, it was stripped, so I went from 5/16 to 3/8 thread. I threaded it out, so this we're going to be using a 9/16 socket to get that one bolt out there. We're going to see exactly what we need here. I'll probably, most likely, we'll see how the valves and everything are. Take the valves out today, and I think we'll just do the valve job first, and then I'll hone out the cylinder, and I'll take a measurement and see what size piston rings we're going to need, whether it be 20 thousandths or 25 thousandths. I'll have to say. The caliper tool I got to measure the inside is a cheap Harbor Freight one. I don't even know if it works. It's digital, so I don't know if that thing's working right now, but I still have to go out and buy some valve compound for when we lap the valves. I thought I had some around, but I don't. So I probably do have it, I just don't know where that ended up. So let me set the camera up, and we'll begin by pulling the spark plug out, and then I'll pull the head bolts out. We'll pull the head off. Okay, I'm going to be using the air ratchet, so mind your ears. But first we'll pull the spark plug out. Now, I'm pretty sure this is 13/16 socket, spark plug socket you'll use to get the plug out. So we'll begin by doing that. Let me get the bucket so I can throw all the bolts in there. Okay, so for these nuts that hold the whole jug on here, I'm just going to use a little separate container to put these in, because these are, like I said, quartz nuts, and I don't want to mix them up with any other nuts that I had to take off this to get it apart. So, alright, so let's begin by Let's begin by using the wrong socket. Just gotta loosen them up a little bit. I did have this head off once. So today we'll get to use the homemade valve spring compressor that I made. Alright. Like I said, just mind your ears. I might get a thread chaser to chase these threads out before we put it together. I shut the compressor off so there's no compressor. Okay, now we'll switch over to the 9/16 socket. Take that last bolt out. This 9/16 bolt here I'll reuse because this is brand new. Or maybe I'll just get a new one while I'm at it. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so let's see what we got down here. Okay, so this thing is blowing oil, like I said, using oil, smoking. I'll give the piston a little, see if I can give it a little shake here. I don't know, it seems to be tight. I don't know if we have a valve issue or I'm not really sure what's going on with this, but I'm going to wipe the piston off. I want to see if I was right about the 20,000 piston in there. Yeah, I see it stamping here. I'll get the magnifying glass since my eyesight is so bad still. Yeah, it says 0.20. So this did have a rebuild done to it. Alright. Let me make sure you're in focus, and then I'll take those 4 nuts off that I was telling you about that holds the jug on, and I think you can see, but there's not really much to see here. Okay, so you can use the box end of the 9/16 wrench. And remember, you have the nut, you have a lock washer as well. You know, I really should clean. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to shut you off for a minute. I'm going to just clean this whole top off real good. And then I'll be back to you. Okay, so a few things I want to point out to you. Okay, if you're going to clean the top like I did, make sure you have the engine set on top dead center so you have the piston rolling up, and your valves will be closed. You don't want the valves open and introduce anything into the valve journals or anything like that. On this piston here, this does have the notch in it, some don't. So the notch always faces back. towards the back of the tractor. If you don't have this notch here, once you have this whole thing off, you'll see on the piston it'll have a big opening. I don't know, maybe the big opening on the piston is because it gets so hot on the exhaust side. I'm not sure, but I'll show you that once we get to that point. And I figured I'd take the nuts and bolts off that hold the jug on to save a little time. You don't need me to see me unscrew nuts. Okay, so I've gotten to that point, and what I'm going to do right now is also, when you reinstall it, you're going to want it to top dead center. This way you're not fighting the valves when you're pushing the jug back down. Okay, so let's see if we can get this thing off here. Pretty tight. Just got to keep wiggling it and it'll come off. Maybe there's still some dirt on the threads here that hold this thing on. I'm not sure. Doesn't seem like much of a lip on top of the like I said, this thing was rebuilt, but I don't know why it's smoking and burning oil like it is. Well, there goes the jack in the front. Alright, before I say some bad words that I don't want to say on camera, I'm just going to pull the jug off camera. It's almost off. I'll get it back on the jack here. Okay, so I got the jug off shortly after I paused the film. I was able to get it off, and so far this is what I found. This is the 20 over piston, and it's got a big chunk taken out of it. And I know it just didn't happen. You know, it looks like it happened a while ago. Also, the bottom of the jug here has a gouge. This is the piston. What I did was I had a piston, it was 10 over, and I really didn't like to do this, but I took the 20 over rings off this. I took the top ring and I stuck it in here, and it was like 10 thousandths with the feeler gauge after I placed the ring in here. So I'm thinking there's nothing wrong with the rings, and the piston seems to slide up and down really good. So what we're going to do now is, I don't have any faith in this, I want to tell you guys right now, because I don't know how much I want to put into this, because I'm not sure we're going to get rid of the smoking and the oil consumption that it's doing. So I at least want to do the valve job like I promised you guys I was going to do. So I have the piston in here. What I'll do is I'll get the piston to come out, and I'll just hold the jug on there and slide the wrist pin in there. I'll do it that way on this one. I had a little bit of a hard time getting the rings back in here because when it was bored out, they probably don't go to the bottom here. Usually if you have like standard rings or even 10 over, you're able to just squeeze the rings on the piston as you're pushing the piston down, the jug down on the piston. This was hard to do just like this, so I'm going to do that. And also, where did these pieces go? You know, did this happen before? Or, I mean, I looked down in here and I don't see anything. And the piston is not magnetic because it's not a cast iron piston. So to stick a magnet down there is useless. So I don't know what the story is, but all I know is I have a bad taste in my mouth with this. Alright, so we're going to get on today, and I'm just going to pull the valves out of the jug. And the intake and the exhaust valves are different. So I'm just going to take this coffee can, the empty one here, and I just mark an I on there for intake, and then I'll get another coffee can and I'll mark it E for exhaust. So, okay, so let me get set up on the tripod. I'm losing my voice because this thing is, I don't know. Okay, good morning. It's the next day. I had enough yesterday with this thing. Okay, so what I did was since I was having trouble holding the jug to release the tension on the valve, what I did was I stuck the intake manifold in the vise here. And also, since the jug is up away from the table now, I just stuck a socket underneath here. So right now what I'm going to do is I'll release the pressure off the spring, and I'll take the keeper out, and we'll take the valves out. You know, I was thinking about this yesterday, and when I took the engine off the 1954 Gravely, what I did was I repaired it when the engine was still on the 54 Gravely, and as I said, I adjusted the valves and I adjusted them wrong. I could have sworn that I found some kind of identified piece of metal when I pulled the engine off, but unfortunately when I pulled the engine off the 54, I did not record it because I figured there was no sense to it. I just wanted to record us taking the engine off the 73 C8 that we're working on now, and just record putting this engine on the C8. But I don't know for sure. But it just stuck in the back of my mind. It was some kind of unidentified piece of metal when I pulled the engine, and the metal was sitting there, and I had no idea what that was. But I don't know for sure. So, all right. So I put our nut under the bracket. I bolted the bracket on here, and I'm just going to pry this down here. And the keeper came right out. So this thing's pretty cool. I like this. I'm going to use 2 coffee cans because the exhaust valve and the intake valve are different. So what I did was I marked an E on the exhaust side, because that's what we're taking off right now. Okay, so I marked an E on here, and we'll put all the parts in here for that. And I'm not really sure about what I'm going to do about the piston. I don't like the idea of putting a 10 over piston with the 20,000 rings on it. Like I said, I got a bad taste in my mouth about this whole build. I don't know whether I should put money into a piston ring, in the, you know, the 20 over piston rings and piston, and plus we're going to have to spend like 60 or 70 bucks to buy the gasket kit to put this thing back together. I'm not really sure. That's all up in the air right now, but I don't know. There goes the nut. Okay, so I got this spring out here. I don't know if the valves are going to be stuck in here or what, but I'm going to go ahead and pull the other side off. Alright, already I could tell these valve guides are no good. I could really shake the valve in here. So that's not a good sign right now either. So it's going to need valve guides too. So that'll be another added expense here. So, alright, I'm going to go ahead and pull off the intake. I don't know if I can get the socket in here. I might have to rig something else up for this. Well, as long as I'm on part of the valve here, which I think I am. Yeah, I think I'm on part of the valve here to do it. Alright, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to unbolt this bracket here and put it on the other side. And I'll just release this one here off camera. But the valve guides are no good. I could tell that already. The valves are really loose in there. So I'll be back to you shortly. Okay, so the bottom spring support, I went to pull that off, and the whole valve guide came off with it. I don't know about the shape of these valves too. I mean, it's all carboned up here, and also I don't like the looks of the valves. Well, this is the exhaust valve. I'm not liking the looks of that. I can only push the guide down so far because of the, and then I can feel a wiggle here. So the valve guide is probably just shot. So I don't know what I'm going to do here with this thing. It just gets worse and worse every time I go to check it out. But that might be our smoking problem. It could have just been the valve guides, and the valves are no good here. But who knows? I don't know for sure. But alright, so I'll be back to you soon. I'll figure out something. I got that other jug that we used. Yeah, I used it to test that tool that we made. I don't know if I should just pull. Maybe I'll pull that apart and see what that looks like. I don't know. I'm thinking right now. I'll be back to you. Okay, so what I did so far is, remember the valve guide came right out where I took the bottom retainer, spring retainer. So what I did was I turned the, you should really replace all this stuff, but since I have such a bad taste in my mouth with this thing, I'm just trying to fix it up to throw it back together at this point. So what I did was I cleaned off the valve stem real good, right? I turned the valve guide upside down. I banged it in. It's in there really tight. Okay, so because you saw the valve guide fell out. Okay, so far, right here, I don't have any play back and forth here. So I think we're just going to let this exhaust valve go. Now the intake, let me make sure it's still in view, because this is important stuff here, right here. I got to show you. Okay, so the valve guide and probably the valve is worn, and I could wiggle the intake here. See how I can wiggle this? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that other jug, like I said, apart. I'll take the intake valve out and see what condition that's in. I'll switch the valve. I'll use the valve guide off that if I have to. But this is no good right here. See? It's really shaking a lot. So that could have caused oil consumption problem too. So, alright, so for now, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Pull the other valve out and see where we stand. If I can get it so the valves are tight, then I'll go buy the valve compound today and we'll lap the valves in. And I'm still not sure what I'm going to do about this piston situation here. I'll have to decide, maybe at the end of this video. I don't know, maybe you could leave a comment and let me know what I should do or what you would do. Alright, so let me get the other jug apart and then I'll be back to you soon. Okay, so as you saw, I situated the exhaust valve. That seems to be good. That's nice and tight. Now I had this other jug and I want to try to salvage the intake, but you could actually see the play in this. So I guess I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to get a valve guide, an intake valve. I think I'll put a new 20 over piston and rings in, and then I'll buy the gasket set for it. And the worst that could happen is it's not going to work. But I don't see why it shouldn't. But let's see what happens. In the meantime, I'll probably have other videos in between because I have to order all the parts and everything. And I think we will go ahead and hone out the cylinder here too while we're at it. And alright, that's going to be it. on part 2 here, and I'll see everybody on the next one, and stay safe.